Long time no see. Welcome back. So this week I'm going to be taking this model, which I printed out when I first got my 3D printer, and I made it really big. And I didn't have a use for it, and I thought, now's a good time to find a use for it. And I had seen this episode of Black Magic Craft where he used some throwaway minis for statues, so he could, use them in his games instead of just tossing them out. So here I have a very large mini. I start out by giving it a Vallejo gray primer coat and then a base coat of copper. Now with my trusty Olfa knife and this big chunk of scrap foam, I'm going to make a base. I cut out a little piece that's a little larger than the statue itself. This is what I'm going to use for a rock outcropping. Now, to give it the look of an old rock that's been sitting in the middle of a forest for a long time, I'm going to start with my Olfa knife and just go around and take chunks out of the side and maybe even a little bit out of the top. And all I'm doing right here is just shaping it up, and there's no real rhyme or reason to how I'm cutting this. I'm just doing it by feel, by look. And I'm just spinning around, looking at it, and whatever looks good to my eye is what I'm going to do here. And this is the fun part. This is where you can just relax and start taking chunks out of this thing until you're satisfied with what you have in front of you. And then the next thing you want to do is add some texture. And this is a pretty common technique where you just take a big wad of aluminum foil and then just roll it over the surface. And this looks like a rock texture when it's completely done. And I make sure I go over the full piece of foam, getting down into those crevices as well to give it texture all the way through. Next step is going to be my Mod Podge base coat. It's black paint mixed with Mod Podge, and this is going to give me a base coat for the foam, and it also protects it. It makes it a little bit sturdier, so hopefully it's going to last a long time for the tabletop, as long as I'm not throwing these against the wall. The Mod Podge is really pretty good for that. And I want to make sure I get full coverage, so I'm going to paint the sides, the top, and the bottom. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to take it and set it off to the side and let it dry for a little bit. And after it's dried, I'm going to put a base coat on it of the actual color of the rock, and I'm going to use a dark gray for this. Again, much like I did with the Mod Podge, I'm going to do a pretty heavy coat over the entire rock. Make sure I get coverage through and through. The first coat of dry brushing, I use this, I think it's a tan. I'll mix it up between like a light brown, a tan, or a suede. The second coat, I used a vanilla. It's almost an off-white, and it really pops. One thing I did forget to do with this piece was I didn't do a black wash. That really would have made it stand out and make it look more like it was this old rock that had been sitting in the forest for a really long time. I might go back over and add some touch-ups to that in terms of the black wash. I went ahead and finished it without it, but I could probably go back and do that. Next step is to just glue the statue onto the base. Plopped it right down in the middle. And I'm just going to hold it in place there. You don't have to hold it very long. That hot glue dries pretty quickly. And once I have it in place, I decide that maybe it's not quite the way I want it to be. I mean, it doesn't look right. It's too shiny, and I don't like the copper, so I go over it with a silver. So to give it more of a metal look. So I'm just experimenting at this point. I'm experimenting so you don't have to, so you can see what not to do, or maybe what to do. If you like that copper coat, you could just leave it like that if you are following along with a tutorial, or if you want to give it like a look as if someone who was unsatisfied with the copper look decided to go back over it with a heavy dry brush of silver and essentially mess it up, you could go that route too. I wouldn't recommend it. I tried to salvage it by putting on heavier and darker coats of metal paints. I think I used a gunmetal and maybe used a lead. I just kept going over it until it was something I could live with, is essentially what I did. But that's a fun thing about crafting. You can just keep experimenting until you find something that works. After a gazillion different dry brushings of this thing, I think I came out with something I could tolerate. Then what really helped it out, honestly, was putting this moss around. You could buy this moss on Amazon or at a craft store. And it comes with different colors of green moss, and you see that dried moss that's like a dead moss, and some ferns and things like that. I just mixed it up and threw it all the way around there, give it some variety. Just because I'm playing around, honestly. And I think at the end of the day, after I get, a pretty good amount of on there, it looks not bad at all. And I think if I go back, like I said, and put a black wash on it, it'll look even better. And I'm not sure what those little, orange and black pieces are. Little pieces of bark or something. But at the end of the day, I think it turned out to be a really nice piece that can go on the board and serve as like a statue hiding treasures or a riddle or just atmosphere for your table. Nice, quick, easy project and something you can do in, half an hour. Anyway, that's all I have for you this week. Hopefully I'll get a couple more done this weekend. I got 6 more to do before the end of the year. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Comments down below, and until next week, have fun and keep crafting.